Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Holden's 11. I got a great episode tonight, and I can't wait to get started. On top of that, we have a fantastic guest. Please welcome author and creator, Mr. Pat Shand.
Why, hello.
Welcome, Pat. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. What's going on?
Well, not too much, but I have an exciting topic we're going to talk about today here, which is the top 11 hottest collectibles. And for the collectible market, I kind of focused on you might say this is the more geekier elements of the collectible strata.
Okay.
So, without further ado, let's jump right in. Our number 11, I don't know if you've been following this at all, but VHS tapes, and many of them are graded VHS tapes. Have you seen this?
Graded VHS tapes.
Yeah. Going for impossible amounts of money that would stun anybody that looked at it.
I would have never thought, no.
Well, and they tend to be things along the lines of, some of the limited edition Disney releases they did that had embossed cases and this kind of thing. And hey,
Okay.
I never throw any shade on a collector, but it's a little
No,
bit of an odd one, right? Because like you can't really still play the video or anything. So I guess it's
oh yeah, because you can't crack it open, right?
right.
I mean, I guess if I were to think about a collectible VHS tape, what I would want is, as a kid, I would record from my VCR a show that I'm watching that I want to, preserve. I
Yeah.
would love to have the kind of shows that, don't end up on DVD, don't end up on an official VHS tape. Someone just recorded that, like for a while, it took years for them to put out the entire box set of the Wonder Years. Bro, I bet if someone had diligently recorded and cut out all the commercials of Wonder Years and put it on VHS, they could have been making bank for years.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. And by the way, now people sometimes say, don't even take the commercials out because they're just as retro and just as
Oh, sure.
compelling. Right, right. Some people kind of dig the commercials, and I kind of like that too. I'm in a couple of the groups where they show the old ads.
I
So
mean, yeah, looking back at the old commercials is definitely, it's a kind of deep set nostalgia. But the thing is, bro, I was in a hotel room about I think like 5 or so years ago, and my wife and I were looking at ads because we're watching the hotel TV. We don't have cable or anything, so we were just for the first time seeing cable commercials, maybe for the first time in 5 or 6 years. Dude, it was like a time capsule. The commercials haven't really changed since the mid 2000s. It's still, they seem like they're produced by time travelers from the past.
sure, sure, I'd buy that, man. Yeah, I dig that kind of stuff too. And as much as we like to complain about commercials, it is a great indicator of the state of modern pop culture. Not
Yeah,
only what's being sold, but in the way that they say it,
bro.
so
I mean, for sure, we all have these, eras of commercials that we, will keep forever. Like, there's probably a million people who, if I said, we got a baby eats the boy, they would immediately think of a specific commercial. The
right.
Dell guy. These characters are for some reason embedded in our souls. Very capitalistic, but hey,
Yeah,
that's what we're
quick
in.
question, why do you think that is? Americans, you kinda noted it, have this curious obsession with, like, backing or supporting these huge, faceless, sometimes cruel corporations. Why do Americans do this? Other countries don't do it, I've noticed.
I don't know. I feel like maybe we not we, I guess. I feel like the corporations probably make it so that they are the only viable option, uh, price wise, quality wise. They're able to, because of their size, they're able to produce at a higher rate. They're able to get higher quality materials for lower costs and then charge us less and kind of push them on
Right,
price out.
right, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I mean, for example, you look at for what we do, we can't charge $3-4 for a single issue on Kickstarter, but Marvel can. Will they? Who knows? But they can.
They can, right, yeah, they can. And I sort of veered off topic there, but I was interested in hearing what you had to say there.
Yeah,
But
man.
I'll go back around to number 10. This is something I don't collect, but I mean, maybe a little bit. Number 10, autographs. What do you think of that, Pat?
Autograph. That one makes a lot of sense to me. And what I appreciate about that is that gives these cult actors who will always be defined as a specific role. It gives them an afterlife for their career after their role in the show is over. Like, for example, there are actors, character actors, where people say, "Oh, I couldn't picture so and so as anyone but this," and that's cool for you. That's bad for the actor, right?
Right, right, sure.
So I like for the actors, just for a fellow creative, that the autograph culture exists to you know, give them something to keep making money. Um,
Right. Yeah, agreed.
yeah, as far as me, um, the truth is that I don't really feel compelled to get any autographs ever. If I meet some, I mean, now especially, I feel like the idea of taking a selfie with someone has dramatically replaced autographs for sure.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally agree.
especially with the bigger names, you know.
Yep.
So personally, I don't really collect that, but I see why you would.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any autographs yourself?
Do I have any autographs? I mean, I'm sure somewhere, just by virtue of going to Comic Cons and working at
Yeah.
cons, sometimes I'll do a book exchange or I'll buy a book and the creator will just sign it to me. Or it'll come as a Kickstarter reward pre-signed.
Right, right, sure.
Yeah,
Yep,
so
exactly.
I'm sure I do. But as
But
far
it's
as
not something that doesn't really inspire you too much, I sense.
no, no,
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah, me neither. I don't I get it. And I get it why people it goes back to that nostalgia thing, right? It sort of
Right.
emulates this time or this memory they had from seeing a movie. I think I got a Robert Kirkman autograph. He's kind of a big name now, right? I got Max
There it
Brooks.
is.
I met him once when he was promoting World War Z.
Right.
I'm a fan of his work, but I never really by the way, I do a fair amount of cons too, as maybe compared to some, but I never got in the line to meet the celebrities or anything like that. I'm super about trying to meet, my customers. So
Yeah, I mean, I've done that for people that I've been dating. I was with a girl who really loves Star Trek, so I found myself when I would do these cons, I would take my hour break and I would be in line for the guy who plays like Picard or
oh wow, well, that's a great one. Sure.
I think like Seven of Nine or some shit.
Uh-huh. Right.
So like she would want that, and I would do it, but you know, I was never super.
If you could get any autograph, whose autograph would you try and get for your
Oh, I don't
collection?
even know. Dead or alive or
Let's say alive to keep it manageable.
so
Yeah,
I was gonna
because
say like DMX.
right, right. That list will get long pretty fast if we go to the.
Um, I mean, like, I don't know. I guess I might say David Chase or Drake, but I do
Okay.
feel like I mean, it couldn't be more different those two. But I do feel like if I met them, I would feel like a herb to ask for an autograph.
Yeah,
I,
yeah, I get it.
I would probably just meet them.
Yeah, yeah, I'm the same way. I would feel funny asking for if it came up organically somehow, I would probably do it.
Right.
But well, let's move on to something that's a little bit more in our wheelhouse, so to speak,
Okay.
which is this is our category number 9, graded comics, which would be books that are from CGC or CBCS. There's a competitor there.
Yeah.
First of all, do you collect any kind of graded books?
Not at all. No.
Not at all. Do you do it to your own books when you release them? Do you sell them that way?
I don't personally do it, but I think it's cool when people buy it and get it graded.
Yeah.
The whole like CGC witnessing your autograph,
Right.
cool to me. I totally get it, but it's never been part of what I do. I'm not against it. I just really haven't,
Haven't stuck your toe in the water.
right. And I experiment with what people find valuable. Like, I mean, this year I started to get into metal prints, metal covers.
Yeah,
That seems pretty hot right now.
yeah, for sure.
And I'm doing trading cards, obviously, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, yeah, that one's coming.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I haven't tried out getting my own personal stuff graded,
I
but
bet you do well on that, Pat, especially with all your. I don't know how much you can talk about, but you've got some development deals and there's other things coming up that
right,
potentially could lead to a spike in your collectible value.
it sure could.
Yeah, and it's I'd recommend it if it was something. If you ever, I'd be glad to help hook you up for the first couple. What I do is I do what they call a pre-screen, and you can send a stack because what you're looking for is the 9.8s, right, in the graded books. And the two ways to do that are to have a thicker cardboard stock cover and to do what they call a pre-screen, where they'll take out everything that doesn't hit the highest grade. That's for guys like us that are moderns, right? Because really, there's people that collect only the 9.8s. That's like a thing that they do.
Right.
And viewers, as always, feel free to chime in if I got any of this wrong. But I also have a few. I get it about holding on to older books as an investment, and we're going to talk about that a little bit as we go forward. It's not the best reason, like I always say to comic fans. I'm in a couple of the comic collector groups, and I say if you enjoy collecting it, the way you're doing it is right. Nobody can really tell you, hey, don't slab your books or don't collect Silver Age. Look, if you're doing it, you're doing it right because you just want to enjoy the hobby. I have a couple early Fantastic Four books. I love the Fantastic Four. And I have those in slabs and nothing crazy. I got a couple fours, a couple sixes, and none of these are multi-$1,000 books, but they're probably what you and I would consider valuable books. But I'm not into it like some people where it's filling up their whole wing of their house, you know.
No, I mean, plus, like, I've seen other creators kind of rally against grading to say, "Oh yeah, you're encasing this in a slab. It can never be read again. You know, it was meant to be read." And it's like, yeah, but bro, like, there's probably a trade. You know, there's probably a big collection. It doesn't matter. Like, that person wants to do that. Let them do that. Who cares? You know?
Exactly right. Yeah, and sometimes, as you know, really what they do then is sometimes they'll hang it on a wall, or it's not
Yeah.
really, it's not their reader copy. It's kind of like a decoration, I guess you'd say.
Right. It seems like a very writer focused complaint where they kind of ignore the fact that beyond just being a book, it's also a piece of art, it's a piece of history.
Right, right. And I especially get it when, and by the way, I get both sides of the argument. Like, of course it's supposed to be read. That's the beauty of it. Kind of going back to what I said earlier about the VHS tape. The same way that seems a little alien to me if it's graded. Well, what do you mean you can't watch the tape? Well, it's the same kind of thing. It's to preserve the memory of it, really, if anything else, right?
Yeah, I will say the comic makes a little more sense because the cover art is
Mhm.
kind of what you're looking at for the most part. But the VHS tape, I mean, like, how cool were those covers? But maybe they were sick. Who knows?
Right, right.
Who knows?
Okay, well, let's keep that topic, but we'll circle back to around. This is one that I love. This is number 8, original art.
Yeah,
And, you know, you've had some fantastic art in your books. And first question, do you collect any forms of original art?
I have been gifted with a few, and I've bought a few pages of my original Robin Hood run from Zenoscope
Oh,
by
nice.
Watts. But in the past, I really would have wanted, like, a page or two per major work that I've done. But the
Mhm.
truth is that very early on in my career, it was already becoming less common for people to be physically drawn with pencils and markers, ink, and instead possibly doing some part of layouts or pencils, but doing the primary heavy lifting digital.
Gotcha, gotcha. Hey, and this is maybe slightly off topic, but as a creator question, I want to slip this in there.
Yeah.
So, what percentage of your work or artist this is now generated digitally? Half of them is digital? What would you
Oh,
say?
I would say
All of
90.
it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I assumed, especially with some of that line work is so detailed. I figured you still had a lot of traditional in there, but I'm all digital over here as a cost saving measure.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is that sometimes an artist will send me a picture of a physical item, and I'll be like, "Whoa, that was physical, huh?" But it's very rare. I have been gifted a physical piece of work um, two times in the past 8 years since Destiny New York started being in production. One by Cena Grace, who was too it it was again primarily digital because he had inked it. I'm gonna sneeze.
Go ahead. Bless
Uh,
you.
Thank you. He had like two scraps, like one like this and one like this. So a few strips of paper. And he drew the physical portion on and then put it together digitally. So he gave me those two pieces. And Liana Kangas gave me her cover for Mixed Magical Martial Arts, where she did the basic line art physical. And that's a large piece. But beyond that, I used to get a lot more. Like, for example, I'm not sure if you can see
Oh yeah, yeah, I can see it.
that right there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I would show more, but my computer's heavy.
It's okay.
That
You can send me an image too, and I'll put it into the
oh
post.
sweet, yeah. That is a double page spread from my first creator owned book called Suckers from Zenoscope.
Oh,
Um,
I don't think I know that one.
no, very few people do. It was digital only. It was supposed to go to trade, but it never ended up going physical. And uh, I I believe the artist would be too scared of being canceled to ever go back to it because it was a pretty raunchy horror comedy.
Oh,
But
gotcha, gotcha.
I think it works today. But what the fuck do I know? You know?
Right, right. I get it. I get it. Well, and viewers, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Pat Shand. And the reason I wanted to ask you these art related questions, you're definitely known in the creator space as having some of the best art in the industry, right? And right now, we're even supporting a Kickstarter. It is I Summoned Cthulhu to Fund My Kickstarter. That's by Pat Shand. I'm going to put the link in the comments so that viewers can follow along to that.
Sure.
So I'm a little bit of an original art collector too. One of the ways I came into making comics was, I'll just touch on it briefly. I was one of the early employees of CBCS Comics when they were a startup based in St. Petersburg, Florida. This is in the very early months of it before they'd been bought by Beckett or anything. And I was we would go to conventions and so forth, and I would rep various artists, and there was always some pretty good ones. I was with Herb Trimpe. I mean, I was with Simon Bisley, great artists, right? So
Oh
I
yeah,
started to collect a
absolutely.
little bit on what they call blank variants, you know, like
Oh yeah, bro.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a quick con sketch. And I got through. Well, I mean, I got a half decent collection. There's probably 15 or 20 of those. But I would say what that taught me, I got to see firsthand what it was like to work with an artist. And of course, I'd been a writer for many years and
Mhm.
wasn't getting any traction. And I went, you know what? And anyway, that's when it clicked for me. That was not that long ago. That was 2015, 2016. And that's how I stumbled backwards into it, was through the original art connection.
I love that, man. Yeah, that to me, the actual blank sketch cover, that is probably the coolest way to get a commission because it essentially makes a one of one variant cover.
Right.
Um,
Right.
that's cool, and the whole the idea of a themed sketchbook is kind of cool where someone walks around. It's just like it has to be a cool topic, you know, like
Right.
how many draw Deadpool, you know, it's 120 artists drawing Deadpool. It's like
Right. Or Harley Quinn, for
yeah,
example.
like that looks like something that you would just see in the comic shop, you know.
Right.
But if it's something cool that isn't obscure enough to annoy artists, but is just generally fun to do and gets artists excited, that is one of the coolest things that you could do. But I do have a special place in my heart for the sketch covers. I gotta produce one.
Ah, yeah.
Gotta
Yeah.
do it. Gotta do it.
Great
Yeah.
idea. Great idea. Okay, perfect. Well, let's jump over to our number 7, Pat. This
Yeah.
is something that I had as a kid, but I didn't collect because I moved over into comics. But number
Okay.
7, action figures.
Action figures. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had them as a kid, you know. I remember I had very sparingly. I had a Rupert Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh,
I had a Spike from Buffy who was dressed as Randy Giles in the episode where he loses his memories.
okay.
I had a Voldemort, which was pretty sick. And now I'll just, you know, I have little smaller ones like people gift me Pokemon toys or um I get made little clay figures of Pokemon sometimes. Someone painted me a Skitty on a rock, which is not a figure technically, but it's in the same realm. But to go out and buy now, I don't personally do that. I would rather hopefully one day make them. You know,
Right, right. Is that something, again, I'm going to veer off just a little bit. Is that something that is in the future for Pat Shand? Are you going to be getting into action figures?
I would like to. Yeah, yeah,
And what do you expand on that a little bit? Like, what do you picture that being? You're going to have a line of your characters, something new you develop. What would your
yeah.
dream action figure lineup be?
Dream action figure lineup. I would like to do sort of the lead characters of all my various titles. Um, I just think that when you're developing characters in the realm of, you know, comic books, genre fiction, people like to see physical representations of them. I'm pushing a bit into that realm by doing an acrylic standee for our Death Goddess character
Oh,
on the
cool.
I Summon Cthulhu campaign.
Okay.
It's a little holographic head to mid thigh little small bust that we're doing. and that's gonna be sick. It's gonna be cool. But
Yeah, that sounds cool, man. I'll definitely
yeah,
check that one out.
yeah, so that's on there right now. It's limited to 50 available on the Kickstarter. I believe there's potentially 11 left to get. So if you want that, go check it out. We're doing a little anime waifu style there. Um, and yeah, I would love figures of characters like Lacey and her giant cat from my book Afterglow.
Yeah.
Uh, and some characters from Destiny New York would be sick. But they are, having Destiny New York characters, they are generally they look like regular people. Like they don't have costumes or anything. They don't have any funky colors for the most part. It would just be cool for them, maybe more of a statue with a pose. But the other IP that's a bit more fantasy driven, it would be cool to see figures for sure.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and by the way, you got a very broad range of what characters look like, right? And even styles of artwork. Do you work with do you have an art director that you always report to, or do you just try different stuff? How does that work out?
Space Between has an editor in chief, Shannon Lee, who we kind of talk to and go back and forth. Um, but I mean, really, I hit up artists every day. I always want to try
Yeah.
new things and see new takes. But I will say I am definitely very, very picky on who we use. Um, I'll find artists and reach out, but say if I put out an open submission, I did recently. I probably got about like 250 submissions, and I really have found one that I'm interested in.
Can you give us an idea? What are two or three qualities that you look for in this type of applicant?
Um, overall, overall style has to be attractive. They have to have it. It just baseline has to look good. Um, Two, and is it just not in order because this next part to me is most important. uh character act Character acting. The faces have to have
Yeah, yeah.
emotion. That's It's so infrequently talked about in comics. You always talk about like storytelling. To me, so much more important than that, and that is important. But more important is the emotional depiction of the characters. Can the characters emote? Does it look like if I wrote various lines of dialogue that takes them through an array of emotions, that the character's face could go on a journey, that their body language can act. Um and three, I guess I look at who they seem to be. Like if someone if I click someone's profile and see that all their Twitter is complaining about collaborators, then I'm not gonna probably hire them because they seem as if they aren't a good person to work with.
Team player, sure. I get
Yeah.
that. And thanks for sharing that. That number two in particular was a good one. So viewers, if you're watching, you're definitely right. That's underrepresented in comics and can be a challenge.
Yes, it's very, very difficult to find for sure.
Gotcha. Great answer. So let's move on to our number six. This is one that I don't collect, but I see people that do it and it does look like fun. Number six, movie props.
Movie props. That audience is so intense. Yeah.
Why do you say that? Why do you say they're so intense?
Because you know, when I wrote Charmed, I wrote the Charmed season 10 comics.
Right.
That put me in conversation with some very dedicated Charmed fans, and the TV props, that market is so into it that people can make a career off of just making replicas.
Oh, right.
It's
Yeah.
it's incredible. But people, yeah, they want a piece of the show's history. Um, I mean, I guess it's the same as a museum. Like, why do we put um dinosaur bones in a museum? Oh, to say that this is a part of the world's history. We, the museum, take pride in showing you that part of history. Well, this person takes pride in the idea that he or she has a piece of what they love forever,
Sure.
right?
Sure. Yeah.
um and every time that they can look at the screen and see what they have in the hand of a character that they love, I get it,
Yeah. And you're
that's one.
making a great point. You're making a great point, Pat. And here's why. Because in all of our examples we've talked about, and you've mentioned this a couple times,
Yeah.
They're collectibles as investments, but that's not what drove the person to the collectible. It's
Right.
like a little bit, it's some tangible element of nostalgia that they're purchasing.
Yes. Yeah. They can physically hold a piece of the show's history. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, of all the ones, this is the one that's least for me, I would say. Um,
right.
I just don't really have anything to do with that. Like if I were to get, I don't know, like if I got like the shirt that Bobby Bacala from Sopranos was killed in, that would be cool, I guess, But like,
Sure, man. Yeah.
what would I do with it though?
Yeah.
Like maybe if I were rich, I would like have a room full of this kind of stuff. But it would, and when I say rich, I mean like 100 million, because it wouldn't be. I wouldn't do this in the first 50 million. I'll say.
Right, right, sure. I had a quick anecdote. I used to work for, I was general manager for Hake's Auctions, which is one of the reputable auction houses here on the East Coast, and they did a lot of movie props.
Yeah.
And I got to represent Captain America's shield at the Baltimore Comic Con 3 years ago, or it might have been 2 years ago. It was the year before I met you, actually. And basically, all I had to do was to carry it from one secure place to the next for insurance reasons. But they sent with me a little contingent, 4 armed guards.
Really?
Well, of course, it is Baltimore, first thing. And the second thing is it was appraised at, I think it sold eventually for 250 or 260,000, I think, something like that. So
Whoa, that's
yeah.
crazy.
And it was the shield. Get this, brother. It because there's various types of props in movies, right? So depending what's done to it, they can tell which one it is and which scene it is in. So this is not, it wasn't the broken shield. It was the lightweight
Yeah.
one. It was the back of it is like foam or something. So we can hold it while he's talking and it looks light. And it was from the airport scene of the Avengers, or excuse me, that is the Civil War movie where they fight at the airport.
That is, I mean, the fact that there are multiple shields and it's still worth that much is crazy to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, there was like, I think they said there was 11 or something. And you know, again, I could never imagine spending that much money on Captain America's shield, but it was badass, dude. It came in this big lucite clear case and it looked like something you would see in the lobby of the Stark building.
I mean, dude, if I was the production designer or whoever makes these props, I'd be like, make a second one. We'll just keep this one and on the side, do a little side hustle.
Well, and I'll tell you how they came by it, which the provenance of these items all has to be tracked. And what the studio did, and God bless them, it was like a gift to the Girl Scouts of America so that they could hold an auction and raise money for the Girl Scouts. I'm pretty sure it was the Girl Scouts. Again, viewers, if I have that wrong, correct me. But then the person that won the auction was just like a millionaire trying to support the Girl Scouts who didn't want Captain America's shield. So, they turned around and sold it again. So that's how we
Huh.
came in touch with.
Man, man, oh man, oh man. If I was Chris Evans, I'd be like, God bless those Girl Scouts, give me that.
And he did too. He helped because it was a good cause, and he sent out a tweet with it. And it's one of the pieces of. It's funny when you work for an auction house, and especially I'm involved with social media and stuff too, and a few people know who I am. So you have to prove everything is what you said it was. So you can't just say, "Hey, yeah, this might have been in the Avengers movie. Hey, this is Shield number 11. Here's the guy's signature. Here's Chris Evans' tweet. Here's the CEO of the Girl Scouts." Like it all has to line up.
Yeah, yeah.
So while we're kind of on that subject, let's change it a little bit. I mean, I don't collect any movie stuff, and I don't do this one either. But our number 5, political memorabilia. You got any?
Oh no.
uh,
Like what would that be like? Like trip to pay like Biden's pill case? Like what would that be?
well, yeah, yeah, I would go back a little older, but there's people that collect things like documents that are signed by presidents, is one. I met a guy a couple of weeks ago. He had a signed Abraham Lincoln letter.
Man, if someone came to me and told me I have this signed George Washington letter, I would just go, all right.
Big deal. Yeah,
Like,
big deal.
yeah,
Not your first love.
yeah, no, like that. The political stuff, I don't care about at all. Like those, I mean, like, you know, I'm sure that some politicians they try their best, maybe. I hope so. but I think most of all they're all assholes. They're dorks. They're nerds.
Mhm.
I don't like. I wouldn't want anything from them.
This
Either
is
side.
great. Well, and this is interesting, man, because we want to know more about you, Pat. And sometimes people know I'm kind of a staunchly anti-government kind of dude. I don't get into it too much, but I've never collected anything political. Again, viewers, I understand these are things. I'm not disparaging anybody's hobby. And like I thought the Abraham Lincoln letter was cool, but I always think things are fake. So I would always have the worry that a political item would be fake.
I mean, it could be, but like to me, a cool Pokemon card. We'll talk about that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Tell you what, yeah. Finish your statement, but we'll move right into it because I'm saving that for you.
A cool Pokemon card that came out today is cooler to me than any ancient political document.
All right, perfect. Well, let's jump right in the water because Pat mentioned that's our number four. That's Pokemon cards. And man, let me go on record stating the soaring in value that we have seen in these cards. It boggles my mind. Pat, when did you start as a collector?
I started when the first set came out as a kid.
What year are we talking?
Oh, let me search it. Pokemon base set release, 1996.
Gotcha, gotcha. And are you like, do you have any of the high end, crazy expensive cards?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what I
Um,
want to talk about. Yeah.
so these boxes are all packed and shit. My office is a mess right now. But
Yeah.
this shelf right here, all those binders are all sets of Pokemon cards.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So you have also a little bit because you still collect now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So obviously at this point, it's you've got a little chunk of the nostalgia for yourself. It's not about money. You're an impossibly wealthy comic book writer.
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually for a while I was making money buying Pokemon cards too, because I would go and buy a couple of cases on release for a new set. And there was a time when, sets were coming out like 2021's Sword and Shield Evolving Skies. That set, you know, that's gone even higher now. But at the time, I could buy a booster box, which was about like $140 and 120 $130, and there'd be six booster boxes in a case, by about 2 or 3 cases per set. And that set, the pull rates were so good that I would probably end up pulling a card or two worth 120, 150, $200 each from those boxes.
Now, listen, I know what you're referring to when you say pull rates because I was involved in the magic stuff. But could
Yeah,
you explain to the viewers real quick what you mean by the pull rate?
yeah, sure. So in a pack of Pokemon cards, most of what you're going to see is like this: a standard,
Hmm.
nothing special Pokemon card,
Right.
a common, uncommon, and
Common.
then there's a rare slot. And you can get something in the rare slot that is, more of a full art type deal that will probably be, if it's like a V or now the newer returning mechanic EX, if it's one of those cards, it's probably going to be about like $2 or $3 value. An actual full art textured version with etched foil could be anywhere up to about 20. And then you have secret rare versions that have, alternate arts. You have special illustration rares. You have character
Right.
super rares. All
Right.
these kind of variants that make the card special, make the card look different.
Right.
Um, those can go anywhere up to bulk prices for like $3 up to this Umbreon card. People always think about vintage. No, some of the more modern cards are way bigger than the vintage ones.
Yeah.
The highest value card of Sword and Shield Evolving Skies, which is not at all a vintage set, it's a 2021 set. Highest value card is now worth, I think, $650. So it's a hard card to get because there are, I think, probably like 200 something cards in that set. And to pull that card, you have to be very lucky because you only have one rare slot per pack. And, your chances of getting a card that rare are very low. So you're likely to spend more money than the card's worth getting it. But there are other cards of value in there as well. So for me as a collector, if I'm opening packs, I'll have to assess what's the risk versus the reward. if I outright buy this card for $600, am I going to be spending less than if I try to open packs and get the card? You know?
Right. How do you buy them, Pat? You going by the case or is like a booster box? How do you purchase
Yeah.
them?
It depends on the set. Like a newer set, I'll probably do a case of 6 booster boxes in there. But for example, recently the new era started. Sword and Shield ended, and now the Scarlet and Violet era came out. So cards like the basic ultra rares look
Nice
like
looking
this
card.
now.
Yeah.
You know, so that is the new mechanic. So this first set, they started out great with this first set, the Scarlet and Violet base set. But the truth is that they're saving a lot of the fire for future sets. So I bought a few booster boxes of that, knowing that the value of these cards is going to be relatively low compared to what's to come.
Okay. Sure. And great answer. And by the way, as one of your followers, I also want to mention you always have the highest quality trading cards with your products that you make.
Oh, thank
Um,
you very much. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, that's something I follow a little bit, right? So, what kind of let me think of the right way to ask this question. What are some things that you strive for when you're making your cards? Because admittedly, you guys have some better looking cards.
I want the cards to represent the character in an interesting way. I want to make collecting them interesting. Like, so for example, with the Kickstarter, right? You are able to get a card like this. This
Nice.
is just our basic entry level card. You can get an alternate art, which is a different artwork of a character that's been featured before. We do it in
Oh,
home
that's nice
foil
too.
there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And the alternate arts all have this first set has a scheme to them, where this card is the Brody McBride card, but he's pictured with Logan there. So all
Nice.
the alternate arts picture the character with the secondary character on the card. Um, and we do convention promos. So you'll see this is our recent GalaxyCon Richmond promo. So it's Taylor Hart, and you see
Yeah.
the convention stamp there. And then the other type that we just started doing recently is our artist collection cards, which takes line art from a prominent artist and puts it on a silver foil. So you see this
Wow.
Jen St. Ange
Yeah, that's cool,
artist
man.
collection card. Yeah, so and then we'll do special stuff like this. We did a parody subset where we have the characters appear in the South Park style.
I saw those. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so just have fun with it, make them fun to collect. And how I do it is I lay out sets and subsets so that they are can be easily collected and displayed in 9 pocket binders.
Have you ever thought about releasing just a set of cards, or have you done that before? I don't know.
We are kind of doing that to start. Like for example, our first promo set. I'm not sure if you can see here, but this card is numbered 35 out of 36.
Gotcha.
So this is a
And I'll
36
share a graphic
promo
too.
set. And you can collect this set over the course of a year of Kickstarters and cons. We'll eventually do starter decks, and then eventually do a booster box.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something I'm interested in and definitely want to look into pursuing that a little bit more. I like that you guys do the chrome cards and they have the design that is it's memorable and it's you can always tell the brand. That's what I like about it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, yeah, we focused on the Pokemon cards. Viewers, of course, I know there's Magic cards, and by the way, they're all the same size, right? Except for Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Is that correct?
They're largely the same size. Like for example, I've collected Pokemon, Dragon Ball Super. Those are the same. I believe that MetaZoo, the art of that I'm not really a fan of, but that looks to be the about the same. My cards are very similar, but are just a touch different. Like let me see, for example, they're they're pretty close to the exact same. They're pretty close to the exact same
Yeah,
there.
that's really cool, man. You got and you round the corners too on yours.
Oh yeah. This isn't like a playable thing, but Squishmallows does cards, so those are more square cut.
Oh,
And
okay.
I have a lot of these cards, to see things about like foil patterns. Like for example, Squishmallows does this thing, which is pretty cool, But I wasn't sure if I was going to go square cut or rounded, but we chose rounded to increase the playability, deck building. So yeah, yeah,
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm a card fan, so thanks for sharing that. Appreciate
oh
it.
yeah, for
All
sure.
right. And so that wraps up the Pokemon cards. Let's jump over to our number three, Star Wars collectibles. And this could be anything. I kind of made this its own category because it could be VHS, it could be comics, it could be action figures. There's a little Star Wars and everything. Some people grab everything Star Wars. You know what I
Right.
mean? Are you a Star Wars collector at all?
I'm not a Star Wars fan at all, personally.
No.
I enjoyed what I've seen recently. Like, I mean, I say recently, when it came out, I was with Zenoscope for a special Christmas party during Force Awakens, so I saw that. Thought that was cool, but like, as a kid, I saw the prequels. I saw two of them in theaters, and my dad took me to see the first trilogy. It's just not for me personally.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I look at this topic and yeah, it's Star Wars, but I get the idea of people loving something and wanting everything. That makes 100% sense to me.
Yeah, yeah. I love Star Wars, but I'm not necessarily a Star Wars collector. It'd be fair to say I have some Star Wars thing just from being in the Comic-Con community and this kind of thing. And my son and I make Legos. That's one of the things pretty much
That's
every year we do one of the Lego projects. Matter of fact, this year we just finished the Lego Technique Batmobile. It's like 1,000 pieces or something. It took us 2 weeks.
intense.
Yeah, it was super
Yeah,
fun.
people love Legos for sure. Yeah.
But I never jumped into the action figures or anything like that. So I don't want to say it missed me because I even look at those collectibles and I say things like, wow, those are cool, but I just never,
Yeah.
for some reason with me, action figures never quite clicked, even though I like them and stuff. But trust me when I say I totally get it and I get why.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too. I mean, like, I could see, you know, people just wanting a physical representation of the characters that they love. That's sick. That's cool. Um, and brands like Funko, they sort of streamline it into this basic uh stylized take, and they make people, want to get
Yeah.
a full set of, say, oh, I want all the characters to look the Funko style and get those.
Right. Yeah, boy,
And
there
like,
were some marketing geniuses over there. I tell you what.
yeah, and like now Squishmallows, I mentioned the cards before. They are partnering with other brands to do their characters in their style. Build-A-Bear does this too. It makes sense, but I
Mhm.
just the plushies even makes more sense to me than the figures personally. Plushies at least are soft. But I get people wanting these for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's circle out of the Star Wars and come back to comics. And I got the two spots at the top of the list because I'm a comic collector myself, and this is something that I would consider investing in. I don't particularly have any big titles or anything, but number two, Silver Age comics. This is an example like Amazing Fantasy 15, first appearance of Spider-Man, right? $1 million book. Do you ever see yourself investing in some of these key books?
No, no. I mean, I wouldn't know where to start. I feel like um I don't know. I feel like history will treat Pokemon cards better than comics, as far as collectible comics goes. Um, it's cool, it's just those aren't the stories that I grew up personally loving, and I recognize their place in the history of the medium that I'm working within.
Sure.
But it's just not for me personally.
How about since you mentioned it, what do you remember being your first story and roughly where on the timeline did you jump in?
First comic or first story overall?
Both.
First book that I read alone was Goosebumps. Um,
Hmm,
uh, I read Barking Ghost with my mother, and then I um ended up taking the next book that I was supposed to read with her, and we read the first chapter together, and then I finished it alone that night. I was just so excited about it.
nice.
Um, so that kind of thing that inspired me to think, oh, I have to do this. So like this guy R.L. Stein, he created this. I can do that too, is what I thought.
Oh, wow.
And first comic was Creep Show, Stephen King's Creep Show with art by
Yeah,
Bernie Wrightson.
sure.
Um, I had a little shoebox of comics that I think my uncle stole and gave to me. And, and it had books like Rocketeer in there. Um, but
Good
Peep
stuff.
Show was the one that stood out to me, you know?
Yeah, I remember that book too with Wrightson on it.
Yeah, and that I'll be 100% real. That didn't start for me, you know, an intense love for comics. It took
Right.
until the mid to late 2000s for me to really enjoy comics personally. I started to read comics that were based on TV media I liked, and that led me directly to writers like Brian K. Vaughan. You know,
Yeah, I want to ask you this question. Who's your favorite authors in the comics field?
Brian K. Vaughan, Terry Moore, Scott Snyder's cool. Uh, I think that Charlie Stickney is a young goat. You
Oh,
know,
yeah, yeah, I know Charlie a little bit.
yeah, man. Definitely not Raven Gregory at all. You know,
I was hoping that would come up.
yeah, man. Craig Thompson, Alan Moore. Yeah, I mean, a bunch of
Craig
writers.
Thompson, blankets.
Yes.
Okay, got it, got it. Just
Yeah,
making
man.
sure I'm on the
Yeah.
same page.
Yeah.
Yeah, viewers, if you're hearing some of these names, I'll throw some graphics up on the screen too. You can follow some of these books. Pat just mentioned some complete comics gold in those last couple of sentences, so I'll share it with the viewers. So let's veer right into number one then, because it's just a different type of question. The number one spot on the collectibles list is Golden Age comics, which would be things like first appearance of Superman and Batman, books that are well outside of my range of being able to collect one. Um, what is your thought on these early issues and the values that they command, which is generally from $500,000 and up?
Yeah. I mean, my thought is that with all the respect, it is very bold to call that the golden age.
Oh, tell us why you say that.
I mean, I feel like they were just figuring it out, you know, like you don't call um like the golden age of TV was, you know, when HBO started to create content. Like they had figured it out, you know. So for us to call that era of comics the golden era is crazy to me personally.
What would you call it?
I would call it the don't worry, we're just getting started era.
That's pretty good. Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you see those old books, and I'll make a statement here that ties into what you said. And I notice this about a lot of comic collectors, and they're probably just going to pillory me for this sentence. But the truth is, most comic collectors don't really love comics. What they love is nostalgia.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is when you talk about these guys that will, you know, drop $500,000 on a comic from 80 years ago, but they
Right.
won't drop 10 on the one that's out right now. What you love isn't comics, buddy. You know what I mean?
No, right. That makes 100% sense. And I totally get it. You know, like it sucks to live knowing that, you know, every day we inch closer to death. So anything that can remind us of better years, bro, I totally get it, you know. It's
Yeah,
just you know, I don't know, I feel like my nostalgia comes from a different place than my, you know, reading habits and collectibles. I feel like you know, some music definitely gets me there thinking about the past and shit, you know.
right. Supposedly one of the strongest memory triggers, music.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. So yeah, I mean, I'll never see myself dabbling much into that. And the truth is that I really do I look back and I see Golden Age and Silver Age comics, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the divide is there. Like they all seem like vintage classic comics to me, you know.
Yeah.
Anything that I would say like early 90s and before is really kind of blends together for me personally. You know, I know that there are different eras that if you look back, you can track and see when things changed, when writers came in and were majorly influential. You know,
Right.
I know intellectually that a comic from the 50s reads dramatically different from a comic from the 80s.
Yeah, yeah, putting it mildly.
Yeah. But a as, you know, a reader, I have never connected to that kind of stuff personally, you know?
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, and I think one of the reasons why, uh here's why. Because all of this reading, material is available in dozens, if not 100 other sources, including online, digitally, trade paperbacks, reprints, facsimiles. There's many ways to do the reading. It's
Yes.
somehow the piece, it has this sort of historic value, right? And by the way, I talk a pretty good game, but I would love to have something like this in my collection. I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't love to have that. But,
Yeah.
I think that when you talk about, getting upwards of $1 million for a comic book, basically what you got there is 2 millionaires slugging it out to own something.
Yeah, and like, you know, I think that looking at it from a lens of nostalgia makes 100% sense. I just, I mean, I feel like we might, and it's good to revere where we came from. I feel like, I don't know, like, eh, if you look at hip hop, right? If you ask someone like Kodak Black, who is, a popular, I mean, like, he's not even younger now, but like a popular, somewhat younger artist. If you ask him who his influences are, who he thinks are the goats, he might say like Lil Wayne, but like
Mhm.
Drake. He's not gonna say, oh, the golden era with the hip hop. You hip it to the hip it and the hip hop. Like that people don't look at that as influential. So why are we so obsessed with what happened so many years ago just because they created these characters? Like, it's cool, but the innovations that have happened since then are also just as cool, if not so much cooler to me.
They've eclipsed it is your point, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd buy that. I'd buy that. And, that's something that, maybe we probably should have had the golden age books a little bit lower down the list then, because turns out neither of us really collect those. But I
Yeah.
had one last point that I'd wanna share with you because
Sure,
people
sure.
say things like, how do I want to say this? They'll say, hey, well, the great thing about the golden age books is they don't decrease in value. But that's not 100% true. I'll tell you why. Collectibles is like, I learned this from working at the auction house. Collectibles is like a wheel that's turning, right? So, like
Yeah.
you said it the best way, the nostalgia for one generation is not the same as the other one. So, the current generation that pays the highest price, they tend to pass away. And then, their stuff gets sold. But eventually, you're going to, we call this sometimes the Buck Rogers principle, who everybody knows who Buck Rogers is, but you wouldn't pay $1 million for one of his books, even though they're just as old and probably just as influential. The meaning that the fans of that material have long since passed away.
Yes, yeah, and that's why, I mean, if I were to rank these, I mean, obviously the one that I collect is Pokemon cards, but I feel like Pokemon as a franchise does a very good job of keeping the original fans interested while bringing in new fans.
Yeah.
Every year they drop about 100 new Pokemon. They introduce these new games while also in that block, like for example, the Scarlet and Violet games just came out that introduces this whole new collection of Pokemon, this new region, right? During this 3 year block, they will also remake one of the older games to get that game to newer fans and also give the older fans a nostalgia jolt. It's very clever, and it's
Yeah.
why I feel like the attrition that you would normally see as fans who grew up with, like, say, base set stuff like me. um
It's why they're still there.
right, as we get older, I feel like we're not being phased out the same way that someone who was reading comics that were coming out at that time might not connect to how comic books, especially superhero comic books, are written right now. But Pokemon has
Yeah.
done a great job of maintaining how they do things while also bringing in the new.
Nice. That's a great way to put it. I totally see what you're saying.
Thanks.
So that wraps up our top 11 list of the hottest collectibles. But before we run out, Pat, can you tell us a little bit about I Summoned Cthulhu to fund my Kickstarter, which is live over on Kickstarter right now?
Yes, this is a comic book about making comic books. It is sort of like This Is the End meets the comics industry. It has real life creators as the characters, as they try to figure out how to gain success in the comics industry. And they join this dark ritual where they pledge to these evil gods, each of who represents a trend in the comics industry.
This sounds
And
great to me.
it's a parody, it's a horror comedy. It is essentially Cthulhu destroys Comic Con. And it's been one of the most fun books to write. It's full horror, it's full hard comedy, and I can't wait for it to come out. We are kickstarting issue number 1 now, and we have it's a 3 issue series.
So what are we talking? This will be a graphic novel then? How long is it?
Eventually, yeah, the first issue is going to be uh 20 2 pages, I believe, maybe 24, I forget, plus some backup stuff. And then the final full graphic novel will be around 70 pages.
I think one of the great things about this project, it features the other creators, as you said, who were at this Comic Con, and
Yeah.
I recognize some of those faces. Did I see Travis Gibb in there?
Yes, Travis Gibbons in there. We have Russell Nolte. We have Big
Oh,
Fat Raymond
nice.
Gregory. We have Charlie Stickney. And then next issue, we'll have even more.
Perfect, perfect. Hey, and what's the so it's a 24-page issue. What's the price point to start out?
Oh, let's see. We have a few different covers. I believe the entry level price point. Let's see. Digital is $5.
Wow.
Digital deluxe, which means that we get the cover gallery as well, which includes the spicy materials, is $12. Uh, Main cover is 16. Most variants are 20 and 25, and then we have a special spicy version for $30.
That sounds terrific to me, and I definitely like the spicy material. I want to ask you, is there a chance that I will see Raven Gregory with his shirt off?
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, if you go to his Facebook right now. And speaking of spicy, I'll do one more small plug. I also just launched an imprint to my company, Space Between Entertainment. It's called Cheeky Comics, and we have a second Kickstarter going on right now. It is for the Cheeky Comics Annual. It's 3 not safe for work stories. Each also introduces a new series that will be a 3-issue miniseries. That is going to run alongside of the Cthulhu campaign.
Ah, perfect, perfect. You're going to have your hands full, 2 campaigns at once.
Yeah, I have a team helping me out here. But this is going to be status quo from now on. We're going to keep doing both ends of the campaign, the standard stuff and the spicier stuff all at once.
Nice, nice. Well, Pat, I want to wish you congratulations on the success of your many projects. It's terrific fun to watch them, and I'm a backer of a couple of these projects. And viewers, these are some very high quality books and cards if you want to jump in and check that out.
Appreciate you. Thank you very much.
So, one last shout out if you want to check that one out right now. That's I Summoned Cthulhu to Fund My Kickstarter. That's over on Kickstarter right now by Mr. Pat Shand. Pat, thanks so much for coming on the Top 11 show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's always fun talking about collectibles, man. That's something I never get tired of.
Very good. Very good. Same.
So, viewers, thanks for joining us. I hope you will check out Pat's campaign. And other than that, I will look forward to seeing you next week. Good night, everybody.